All right. Happy Friday, TGIF. We started doing these when COVID-19 happened as a resource for coaches to kind of help manage the crisis and all the updates that were coming down and all the changes and the bills that were getting passed and yada, yada. And it was a lot of fun. So I thought, well, let's do another one. I don't think there's as much emergency type information coming out right now, but if you have questions at the end, I wanted us to have a really good discussion. And at the end, if we've got time, if you've got questions that you want to ask, by all means, we'll open it up. I do want to try and keep it to an hour just out of respect for everyone's time. And we can always, talk to more people and learn more. And sometimes it comes down to taking action. And so we want to limit this to an hour so that you guys can all get to work and working on your businesses and taking care of your clients. For those of you who don't know me, we've got 40 some people on the call, just in case some of you don't know me. My name is Kelsa. I am a financial coach. My coaching business is called Fiscal Fitness Phoenix. And then also I am a financial coach trainer through the Financial Coach Academy. So I launched the Financial Coach Academy about 5 or 6 years ago now. I can't believe that, probably 5 years ago. And we do a lot of different things for financial coaches. We've got the Facebook group, of course, Financial Coaches Unite, which is how you guys heard about it. But then Financial Coaching Symposium, which is a live in-person 3-day event and training for coaches. We've got Inspired Grace Retreat, which is a retreat for female financial coaches only. Sorry, guys, we are talking about adding a co-ed one if you're interested in that. We've got the Financial Coach Academy, of course. We have the Financial Coaching Toolkit, which is more for veteran financial coaches. And I know we've got some of you on who are brand new, and you commented in the group and you said, this is the first training I've ever done. Welcome. I am so proud of you for taking that leap of faith and just saying hey, I think I'm going to do this. And I don't even know if I feel like a financial coach yet, but I'm going to join a call with a bunch of other financial coaches. I'm super proud of you. I hope that you sort of maintain that level of engagement and stepping outside the box for years and years to come in your business, because I think it will serve you really well. So I wanted to pick a topic that I thought would be relevant for everyone, no matter where you're at in your business. So if you're brand new or you're a veteran, doesn't really matter. I wanted to pick a topic that we could probably all talk about. That topic today is, how do you own who you are as a coach? So in what ways can you solidify who you are, the type of coach you are, all the things you do to help people, the clients? How can you essentially really put yourself out there? What are all the subtle ways, but also big ways that let everybody know that this is the type of coach that you are, this is what you're all about, and really make it so those people, if they like that, they lean in more, and if they don't like it, they leave and go find somebody else, and that's okay. That's exactly what you want to have happen, okay? So I know when you're a newer coach, I'll say, some newer coaches they do this really well. They really just know exactly who they are. They're confident in their marketing. They're confident in their branding and that sort of thing. But I think most of us, myself included, and when you are first starting out, you sort of just look to see what everyone else is doing and you sort of mimic it for a while, right? And you kind of figure out what you like and don't like, and then you maybe begin to hone in on your own personality and the kinds of things you can do that are unique for you and different from everybody else, and you maybe become a bit more of a trailblazer. Some people, like I said, do that right out the gate, and kudos to you if that's how you do it. And then at some point, if you have been coaching for a while, the reason I think this topic is relevant for you is it's really important at some point, if you're not careful, you can kind of look at your business and start to feel disconnected from it. And the reason for that oftentimes is that we are feeling more confident, and yet some of the systems we put in place or the things we did initially don't match up anymore. And it's because we were mimicking for a while, or we were just taking what, you can only do so much when you're first starting out. There's so many moving pieces. There's so many things you're trying to build to launch a business initially, that copying, if you will, is sort of just what we have to do for efficiency's sake, right? Just to get it done. And then after a while, if you don't go back and reevaluate, and if you don't go back and, up level things to be more of you, then you start to feel disconnected in your business. You start to feel a little disgruntled. You might even feel discontent, or as if this really what I want to do, and that kind of thing. And so it's really important that you're reevaluating. key components of your business and saying, is this really me? You really want to make sure that the people you're attracting love you, lean into you, they, like the way you are, and you don't feel as if you have to be somebody you're not to serve people really well. Okay. So I broke it down into some categories so that we could start talking about these things. And by all means, you can use the chat. I am not great at reading chat and talking at the same time, but I will try my best. And you can also just open up your mic and talk and share and that kind of thing. And just like in normal conversation, we've got almost 60 people on the call now, which is amazing. Just like in normal conversation, when you're having like a really good discussion, sometimes two people start talking at the same time and you kind of have to look at each other and pick who goes first. That's exactly what has to happen on Zoom or on a virtual meeting too. Sometimes two people might start talking. The tricky thing about it is that it's not easy to like figure out who else is that other person that is trying to talk with you. So it kind of takes a minute, but just know that awkwardness is normal and we will all figure it out. We're all grown adults. We can handle the awkwardness, right? So here are some of the categories that I thought we could talk about. The first one is the words you choose. So the words you choose to use, whether that's on your marketing or how you describe what you do on your website, let's say, or when you're presenting, absolutely will help people to know a little bit more about you. So for example, do you use curse words? Is cursing like one of those things that you're like, oh, cursing does not bother me. I'm going to use a choice swear word every once in a while. And my ideal client doesn't shy away from that. If anything, they maybe think, oh, that's my girl because she, just cursed. Or do you prefer a more formal or professional cadence to the way you talk? Maybe you choose specific words and that sort of thing. Those are the two sort of opposite ends of the spectrum, of course. And then there's the whole gray area in between. Your brand. So images that you choose on your website, for example, the images that you maybe create if there's a quote on them, your own images, like your own headshot. So like what you wear in your headshot images. Are you more relaxed and casual? Are you wearing a suit? Are you wearing a dress? Those types of things. Are you in sparkles everywhere? That definitely dictates a little bit of like who you are. The colors you choose, the business name that you choose. So, do you have a more of a fun, playful business name? Do you have a formal business name? Do you choose your name as your business name? Those are all things that can really make it so that people know what they're getting. Your title. So are you a coach, a consultant, a counselor? Lots of different terms that you could use there. Your philosophy is another one. And so I really want to make sure we talk about this too in depth a little bit. Your philosophy will absolutely attract your tribe. And what I mean by that is if you have, I'll give you an example for me. So I personally do not believe that there is only one way to get out of debt. I do not believe that the snowball is the only option that works for everybody. I believe that there's 4 different ways to get out of debt. I sit and talk with my clients about those 4 ways. We figure out which way they like the best and we run with that one. And by stating something like that, that can be a very polarizing opinion, right? So there might be some of you on this call that disagree with me, and that is okay. You are allowed to disagree with me. But it is one of those things that somebody who, like if I do a video about that, or if I do a Facebook post about that or something, and if there's somebody who disagrees with that, I just let them know that maybe we don't have the same philosophical, alignment when it comes to money. Okay. And I think that's a good thing. And then somebody else who's like, oh, I tried the snowball and it didn't work for me. And they're really feeling badly about themselves. And then they see my Facebook post. They're like, oh, yes, finally somebody gets me. Right. And so what it does is you're allowing people, the way I want you guys to think about this, with these types of things, what you are allowing somebody to do is get off of your fence. So think about your fence is like the worst place a prospect could be. They're taking up the fence from other people. The idea with all the things you do is you want people to either move forward, lean in even more, and essentially like say, yes, I love this person even more and I want to buy from her, or I want to consume something of hers. because you just did something that was polarizing that really helped them to understand that they love you, right? So they're going to lean off, they're going to get off your fence, but they're going to lean in closer to you. And some people, when you post something like that or share something about yourself, they're going to get off your fence and they might be like, okay, this is not the right person for me. And that is okay. The idea is that you're helping them to decide based on who you truly are and what you're all about, that they need to get off of your fence. You're helping them to decide. If you always stay surface level with everything you do, people are going to stay surface level with you. Okay. So these types of things help them know whether they should lean into you or back away from you. And that's a really good thing. You want to help them make that decision. So I want to open it up and I want to hear from you guys. What are some of the things that you are already doing? It can be some of the things I listed, and it can be something completely unique. I hope you guys come up with ideas other than what I have. I've got a pen and paper handy, and I'm going to write some of these down. But tell me, what are some of the ways that you feel that you are letting your people know who you are and letting them know what you are all about, even if you know that it might turn somebody else off? What are some ways?
Can I speak?
Yes, Nadine.
Okay. Hi, Nadine. So I'm brand new, like so brand new to all of this. Like I just got my certificate a few days ago. Anyway, my idea, so I feel like I'm very different because I've done a lot of circus in my background. I've got this like circus moniker, and I kind of want to bring that in because I kind of feel like working around a lot of artists, a lot of them are like, we're artists, we're so bad with money, blah, blah, blah. And I just kind of want to be a little bit more, I want to make financial coaching more approachable to them by not being this formal persona. I'm not saying that I'm going to be a money coach dressed as a clown. I'm just saying that I'm more gonna bring a retro look to it.
Yeah.
My persona is more of a rockabilly retro kind of person, and I kind of want to bring that in, and I will use swear words.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I think that that's great, and it's something that you know, so people are going to be intrigued by it, right? They're going to be like, tell me about this. Why do you have this? And you can be like, oh, well, this is my past and this is my experience. And like, I think that that's just one way that people can know more about you, know that there's multiple dynamics to all of us. And I think that that's a really cool thing. So that's awesome.
Cool. Thanks.
Very cool. Who else?
Hi, Kelsa. It's Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
How are you?
Good.
So I come from long-term recovery. I'm in a 12-step world. And in the first couple of years, I really hid that in the business. But it's so who I am to the core. So I've recently really just kind of let that out, let my people know, put it out on in my wording. I actually just put up a blog, and somebody said, I love how you put your 12-step principles, like your wording showed in your blog. So somebody that recognized that. So definitely stepping out in that way with the idea that I want to be coaching people in the program.
I'm here, and first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
And congratulations for, your 12 steps, but congratulations for leaning into it even more too. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, do you feel differently once, like after you put it out there for the very first time, do you feel differently about that? Like
scared.
Yeah.
So I'm 32 years clean, and I come from meetings back then were in basements and we were hidden. Yeah. So coming from now, it's just like everywhere. It's TV shows. It's anywhere you look. Almost you'll see 12 steps. So that fear of being judged sometimes, just depending. In the end, though, the end result is never been anything but fabulous. But it's just that core wound that goes, like that kind of thing.
Do you feel like now that you've done it and it's kind of in the past a little bit, even if it's recent past, do you feel like a weight has been lifted, as if you are being your authentic self, or that you're not hiding this big part of who you are? Or was there ever a fear of like people are going to find it out, or was it not that big of a deal to you?
I've always been in the open in my world. Not out on, it's an anonymous program. So I've always been anonymous in that way, but never out in the world that way. So I still have concern of like other colleagues from other things that I'm involved in seeing it. But I will tell you that one of my referral partners found out, and he said, it makes me want to help you that much more.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I also love the analogy and the relationship between the shame you felt being in a basement, not wanting to be judged, like wanting to make changes, but also needing to hide the fact that this was a problem, and the correlation between that and how people feel about their money. Like they're in basements feeling shame and not knowing
So
who
true.
to turn to. And you can easily use that in your stories that you tell. And, you know, it's just going to make people feel so much more connected to you. I love that. I'm
Thank
really
you.
proud of you. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Who else has a example of ways that they do this already?
I'm Ryan. Can I talk?
Yeah, of course.
Hi, I'm Ryan.
Hi,
This
Ryan.
If
Hi,
you
baby.
can see me, this is Beta, my 5-month-old daughter. So in case you can't tell, I have way too many tattoos, and that is kind of like part of my niche is tattoo artists, especially in New York City, but kind of all around. I've been tattooing for over a decade, and I know enough tattooers to know that they're generally terrible with their money, like I used to be. And so, and not only that, I'm also in 12-step recovery, almost 7 years. So I got kind of both those things going on there.
Awesome.
And yeah, I don't have any intention on trying to sell myself to anyone that isn't interested in that. I don't have any intention on trying to sell myself. I just want to be myself exactly the way I am. And, you know, I'm sure that it's like, there are going to be people that have had no interest, have never had an interest in working with a financial coach before, but then they're going to see what it is that I'm up to and my perspective on things. And it's going to, you know, open up a possibility for them that wasn't available to them before.
Yeah.
So.
Love that. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that if there's somebody who, you know, maybe is wearing a suit and tie every day, and somebody like you, and there's a person that's all tatted up, and they're like, which person maybe do I connect with more? And it's not fair to say that those things people make judgments on those. It's not necessarily fair, and yet people have to make judgments very quickly sometimes, right? To know, like, who do they then pursue or look into more and that kind of thing. And all of these people exist in our world, so they all need to be served by somebody, right? So I think it's awesome that you're able to sort of lean into that and know that, like, hey, I'm not.
That being said, having tattoos is not a requirement to be a client of mine.
Of course. Of course. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it makes total sense. That's awesome. Who has like a philosophical money concept that, like, the way you view money is kind of unique, or maybe is different than what is out there? Like, it might not be unique to the people on this call, but it's unique to others, or maybe a expert, let's say, or a book that's really commonly accepted or something like that.
Can I talk?
Yeah, of course.
No,
nobody can talk, of course. Yes.
Just normal to ask permission first. I don't know, like, I was recently showing a couple of my friends and my family back home my website and stuff, and they were kind of surprised with how much I've put in, like, exclamation marks, and like a lot of it's quite fun, and like that's very much my personality, whereas they kind of expect me to come out with something a bit more professional, you know, that's because it's talking about money, which is not really the angle I want to go with. You know, I want to go with the more fun, kind of open sort of concept that people can talk about money and not be sort of.
And I'm curious, Michael, if when they said that, did you kind of have a moment of like self-doubt where you were like, is this wrong? Like, should I change it? Or,
I mean, immediately, yeah. But like, honestly, I don't really want to attract those type of people anyway. I feel like there's a certain niche that I want to attract, and that's within that my sort of marketing will probably reach those sort of people anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's
awesome.
kind of what I got from it. But then I was like, oh shit, maybe I'm getting rid of a load of potential clients because of this, because they're going to be like, this guy's not really serious at all.
Right. Well, that's a great point, because if you're always fun, then, you know, people may wonder, you know, if you also have that other aspect. And so I think it's really important to balance it in the sense of like, let your personality shine, but at the same time, you know, share really important financial information and concepts so that they understand that you're not just a pretty face, right, Michael? You know, that make sure that's coming across, but you can do both. You can be really fun and playful, and chances are, like, your person is going to know that. Your person's going to know that you can be fun and serious all at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping to connect with probably less people, but to really connect with the ones that I do connect with.
Yeah, I think this is why it's so important. I really want to spend a few minutes giving examples of the philosophies we have and the information we share about those, you know, financial strategies, because if we are only showing ourselves in branding and colors and that sort of thing, well, that is really important, and we want to do that. If you've got background noise, you can go ahead and mute yourself. If you do all those things and you only do that, then that's still a way of sort of being surface level a little bit, right? Where we do want to be a little bit more in depth. And I actually think, you guys, that what is scariest for most people is to share a concept or a strategy that, you know, some people don't agree with, right? Like, that can be really scary. So how many of you, raise your hand if you think, and I'm not gonna be able to see everybody, but I've got about 20 of you on my screen at one time. Raise your hand if you think credit cards are okay for a person to use. Okay. Okay. Raise your hand, go ahead and put your hand down. Raise your hand if you think credit cards should not be used. Okay. So, great example of whatever you believe is probably right for your ideal client. And I want to encourage you to share your thoughts on that, whether it's on a blog post or a social media post or a YouTube video or wherever you're sort of like engaging with your people, knowing that somebody might comment and say they disagree with you. How many of you are a little terrified by that prospect, that somebody might, that there might be a troll or there might be a naysayer? Yeah. It can be a little scary, but the idea is that I want to go back to the fence analogy. What you allowed that person to do is sort of get off your fence. Like, they know that you're probably not their person, and that is okay, right? The alternative, if you think about it, is that they don't know that. They maybe hire you, and now you're working with them and not seeing eye to eye. You're not able to get results. Maybe you have, you know, you struggle with, you know, really helping that person because you aren't the same, you know, you're not in alignment philosophically on money. And it's better to help them make that decision beforehand. Does that make sense? And those types of things, I think, help solidify your brand and who you are as an expert. I know somebody says it depends on the client. That is a philosophical thing, though. Like, you should post that. That should be your opinion. Like, if that is what you think, then I want to encourage you to do a post about it, or a Facebook, or whatever it is, wherever you're, you know, engaging. I want you to share that, because, again, somebody who believes that they're evil, you know, may not agree with you, and that is okay. But for a person who's like, oh, good, I want a coach who maybe doesn't tell me that they're evil or doesn't believe they're wrong, and maybe has in that person, in that client's view, like an open mind about it, so that they can tell me why it's good sometimes and why it's bad sometimes. Like, they're going to lean in even more for you in that example. And that's really what you want to try and do, Coach Renata. I want to help my clients use tools, and credit card is a tool. You know, and I know, Renata, you're I would consider you one of the experienced coaches. So do you feel like you share that openly already, and you don't shy away from sharing that?
I don't really shy away from it, but I think, just like other people comment, it totally depends on the client. I have clients that should not be using credit cards because it's a behavior issue for them. But I also believe that, I personally believe, having a credit score in this day and age is important. So teaching my clients just how to do it behavior-wise, to do it appropriately. So that's all. I don't want to ever take things away from my client. I'd rather lead them in the direction of doing something responsibly. That's all.
Yeah, right. No, I think that that's great. The other thing you can do is you know, we call it a rant video. That's the title of the concept, but really it can be a video, it can be a post, it can be anything. The idea is something that you feel passionately about and you see somebody else doing it differently, or you see a message being spread. If you hear, let me see where's that coming from. Kelly, I think that's you. I'm going to mute you, Kelly. It's really loud. Where's that coming from? I'm not able to see like where that is. Okay, there we go. Okay. Sorry, you guys. Okay. So if you see a message being spread, let's say, and you want to voice the opposite, it can be scary to do that, but it's also one of those things that there's, when a message is getting spread in a very common way, there's a whole group of people that are hearing it that disagree with it, but are afraid to say so, right? And what you do by sort of standing tall is you become a leader and you say like, hey, I don't agree with this. It's okay. I can understand where people are coming from. You don't want to shame people, but that's not what we're saying. But the idea is you want to really own your viewpoint. And what happens is all the people who maybe were thinking the same thing but afraid to say it now respect you so much more for sort of being that trailblazer, right? And sort of owning what you think. What are some other money philosophies that maybe, I know, is Jess on this call? Jess.
I have one, Kelsa.
Yes.
So she's not. I mean, if Jess is there, go for it. But
go for it. She's not on.
Okay. So I mean, I know it's something that you know, but I talk about my values and share a lot of posts that align with my values, and it affects money. And so, you know, while as a coach, I mean, my focus is on couples, I help them as individuals sort through and get empowered around their finances. I also believe,
Adam, I think you're breaking up. I was hoping it was going to stop, but
as the society under them in place, a lot of finances at a broader systemic level. Oh, did I lose y'all? I got an internet connection was unstable. Did you lose me?
Yeah, it was like cutting out a little bit when you were talking.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that, everybody.
Okay,
basically, just I have what you would call progressive values, and I think talk a lot about how kind of systemic issues, how prejudice plays a role in people's economic situations, even while I also work on empowering individuals and couples, which is my main specialty. And there's definitely people clients who I've worked with, other coaches who I've worked with who have different political values or different social values than mine. And yet, like, it's important for me to share that. And it's definitely paid off, and I've made a lot of great connections and drawn clients towards me who are more aligned. On the other hand, there's something I've gone back and forth with a lot, which is I have a lot of debt from graduate school, and I go back and forth whether to talk about that and how much. And the plan that I've actually made is to just pay off the minimum I can and then have it forgiven at the end of the time. And that's very controversial in the finance world. A lot of people that I've come across are like, you have a debt, it's your obligation to pay it off. You shouldn't rely on a forgiveness program. And so I go back.
Oh, dang it. Adam, you're breaking up again.
Between extreme anxiety about that and sharing it. Oh, sorry, that's okay. That's enough.
No, so, and I think what a great example. So thank you for bringing it up, because this is definitely one of those philosophical decisions or beliefs that you have. And even if you're still conflicted about it, right? Like some days you're like, okay, this is the right decision for me. This was okay. Knowing it's polarizing. I feel uneasy about it. Yet you're still making that decision. It's not easy. And for anybody who believes that, that's not okay, you just gave them permission to not lean into you. And I actually think that that is an okay thing. For all the people that are like, I want someone who's going to have every idea on the table, even the idea of like ignoring your student loan debt till the day you die kind of thing or whatever. Like, I want a person who's going to put every idea on the table and talk with me about every idea and not have that, perspective that some are bad and some are good. And so the ones that are bad, we're not even going to talk about. We're not even going to entertain them. Does that make sense? I also,
oh my goodness, Kelsa, I'm sorry, this is Jessica. What you just said explains who I am. And I have been trying to figure out how I can encapsulate somebody who, for anybody who doesn't know, I used to be a lawyer. I'm still a lawyer, but whatever, I'm trying to be a coach.
I'm still a lawyer, but I used to be a lawyer. I love that.
Right. I'm trying not to just be a lawyer. But the idea that, I just take my clients where they are. That's been I'm a counselor. I've been a counselor my entire career, and I have to take them where they are. I have to show them what all the options are, and then we have to talk through which ones are going to work best for them given their individual circumstances. Yeah. And it feels, when people are so, clearly defined, and their borders and their philosophies and everything is so clearly defined, and they can create a brand for themselves, I feel left out, because my brand is, I want to work with you where you are. My brand is, I'm going to take you to the best place for you. And that place could be very different than where I take somebody else, but we're going to talk it through together. We're going to go through all the options, and we're going to make a decision together. Yeah. And how do you brandize that? How do you make that an avatar into something people would see?
I would say through story. I think through story. So what Adam just did was give an example for his own life. And I hope, Adam, that you feel encouraged the more you do it to share even more. And I hope that you tell that story, and it doesn't even have to be that you tell the decision. I don't think there's anything wrong with you telling your decision, because I think some people are going to relate to you more, but I think it's about how you feel about that you've made a choice that some people disagree with, that they passionately disagree with, and that you had to make a decision that's best for you, knowing that some people question your integrity because of that decision and how that makes you feel. I would share that because there are a lot of people experiencing the exact same thing. Does that make sense? And same for you, Jessica, I would say through story. So if you get a client, you want to tell the story of where were they at and how did you meet them where they were at? Right? Maybe what did they think you were going to do and what you ended up doing instead. Does that make sense? So they thought I was going to tell them this, or they thought I was going to judge them, or they said they were afraid to reach out because of this characteristic or this, financial detail. And the more you can give those examples, the easier it is for somebody else to relate to that example. Another good one, you guys, is tithing. So if you believe in tithing, which is typically 10% of your income to your church or ministry, then if you believe that, I encourage you to share that. I encourage you to share that because there are a lot of people who believe that and somebody else may not, but chances are it is a big part of who you are, is what I find with tithing. It's a big part of not just your financial life, but your life and your beliefs and that kind of thing. And you really want somebody who I think is in alignment with that. And it's not to say somebody who doesn't tithe can't be a great client. They can be, but they're open to the fact that you do it, right?
Yeah, Kelsa, actually, sorry.
That's okay.
I was actually going to say faith is one of my kind of philosophies that I attribute to my financial coaching, even in our, my personal life. Oh gosh, here, sorry, my kids. Even in my, my personal finances, faith is a big part of, our decisions that we make with our finances. So I attribute that to financial coaching with clients as well. And, post on, my social media, scriptures and how we can relate that to our finances and stuff like that. So yeah, faith is a big contributing factor for me.
Good. Sherry, I see that you're on, Sherry Andrews. So this topic was actually spurred by our conversation, if you know, with the whole cursing thing.
Sounds familiar.
Do you mind just sharing a little bit? I know I'm totally putting you on the spot. You had no idea I was going to do this. Do you mind sharing a bit about what, because you made some very quick changes as a result of our conversation. Do you mind sharing what those are? Yeah, what do those say behind you?
This one says get shit done. The S and the H are a little hard to see. And over here we've got, if you can't say something nice, say something witty and sarcastic. And really these two things resonate with me so much. I was lucky enough on the coaching certification call last Saturday to end up having a one-on-one with Kelsa because nobody else joined. So thank you to anybody else that's going through the certification. And I've been on the fence for a little bit, and this is kind of interesting. Me being on the fence was making my potential clients be on the fence. So after I got the clarity that I wanted to really show up genuinely as myself, I went to my website and went, oh my God, this is crap. No wonder nobody's not connecting with me and signing up like through my website, because it was very plain and generic, and it didn't feel like me at all. So I've put some work in this week to change my website, and I had a few people that know me look it over, and they're like, yes, Sherry, you're shining through. And I just feel like that's really going to help me connect. Like, it's definitely going to repel some people. People are going to go like, no, she's not my person. But it's going to pull the people that I want to work with to me and repel the people that I don't want to work with. So
yeah, I love that. I think that's a great example. What other ways, is there any way, so those are all things that you guys are currently doing. Is there anything that you guys are like, how do I embrace this? What way do I use this? Is there something that you know about yourself, or something you believe and you're just not sure how to get it out there in a way that feels in alignment with like who you are, or that you just feel scared? Is there something that you just feel scared about? You can share that too.
Me.
Taika?
Yes. Taika, you have
Taika, okay,
right.
good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, actually, that is something that I've been working on for myself, because my journey is very unique, dealing with bone cancer, and then being a single mother of 3 at the time. And then after the cancer, I had a 4th child. And so trying to balance all of that, then putting myself through school, getting my degree. And so I feel like I know I have a story, and I've been told so many times I have a story, but I guess it's just trying to now piece everything together and get my story out there authentically, and then without me feeling some type of way behind the curtain, of what are people going to think, or is this really going to help somebody, and am I actually going to bring value with sharing my story?
Yeah. Who is your ideal client, Taika? Do you know? Is it somebody that's similar to you, or is it somebody who's different?
They are similar as far as being a single mother. I haven't niched it all the way down, because I don't want to just say single mother. I want to actually have a little bit more specifics. But I haven't, because I'm still in that phase of trying to understand exactly how to bring my story to light and being comfortable with it. I think that's kind of where my stopping point is.
I want you to think about a client, and they come to you and they've got some story, or they're shying away from telling you about their past or their past experiences and that kind of thing, because they're afraid that you might judge them. What would you say to that person?
Oh, my first thing is always, trust me, I absolutely understand. The thing that you think I don't get, I get it. I get it.
So what you just said, I want to try and point something out to you, and I'll see if I can articulate this. So you just said, trust me, I understand. What if the story is what helps them to trust you that you understand? That instead of you needing to say, trust me, I understand, they see your story and they immediately know, I can trust her to understand because of this story.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And you know what? You are absolutely right, because if I do read of other people that I'm not, I don't know, but I just read what they've gone through, it does give a sense of, okay, they understand, they could possibly understand some of the things that I've went through sincerely. So
yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah. It's not as easy as saying, just put yourself out there, be real, be authentic. Like, it's okay. Like, it's not, I do believe that, but I also appreciate the fact that it's not that easy, right? Like, if it was that easy, we would all be doing it. But I think for you are, you're going to have to work extra hard for people to know they can trust you if you shy away from telling your story, because your story is what helps them to know that they can trust you. See what I mean?
Oh,
and
right,
also,
right.
if you would, you know, when I said, what would you say to them if they weren't telling your story, what I didn't hear was any judgment about that, right? Like, you are appreciative of where they're at. You didn't try to like shame them for not talking about it or anything like that. You were very patient in your response, which is something that I heard. You weren't like, oh, you can tell me, just tell me. Like, you're like, trust me, I get it. I get that it's hard to share, is essentially what you did. Does that make sense?
Right.
Which,
right. Right.
Which is a very unique sort. That's like your personality is like shining through in that response. And so I would encourage you to share that part of your story when you tell your story. So be honest about the fact that like I sometimes hesitate sharing my story with people for this reason. And it takes me a while to open up and share my story or something like that, for fear of judgment or for fear that, does that make sense? Like, to say
Yes,
that part of it.
It absolutely does. And I can see that. And I can see how that could definitely help someone by me, you know, letting them know that it does take me a while, because that's very genuine, and it's real and true that for, you know, most people it does take a while, especially if they don't know you, to open up. And so I can definitely use that and utilize that when I'm thinking about speaking with people and sharing my story. So
yeah, and you could start by saying something like, you know, let's say on your about page on your website, you could start by saying something like, it's taken me a while to add this story to this page of the website, right? And then you tell your story. I think what I'm saying, you guys, and I think this applies to everybody, is I think we assume that when we tell our story that we have to tell it and be 100% confident that when we share it, it has to come from this like really confident place of like empowerment and all of that. And I think we should share it in whatever way feels most honest for us. So in Adam's way, talking about his situation and saying, this is hard for me to share because I know some people will question my integrity of the choice, right? Like being honest about that, not just saying like, this is the choice I made and this is what works best for me and I'm 100% confident in it and this is who I am and all of that. Like if that's how you feel, 100% do it that way. For real, like that's okay. But I think we assume that when we share the story or we finally dive into sharing it, that we have to share it in this like super confident, like, oh, I'm not worried about anyone thinks of me kind of way. And I think it's okay. And it's actually better to be honest when you share it about how sharing it makes you feel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Especially if, Taika, your clients feel very similarly to you, like in the sense that they may not embellish their story when they're telling it. They may really hold back on some of the details, or they may, make sure that they're not telling it in a way that they don't overshare. They're not oversharers, I guess. Mm-hmm. Right? Would you agree?
Right.
Right?
I get that.
Yeah. So the idea is that if these are ways that you're identifying your ideal client. So you can say my ideal client's a single parent, right? Single mom, but to take it even deeper than that, and my ideal client has a hard time sharing their story. They have a hard time, maybe sharing all the details. These are all things that like are a way of like really refining your ideal client even more. And it's actually just really in alignment with who you are too.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. So I'm going to go back and take a look at that and take into account what you said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. And I think this is why sometimes it can be helpful to have someone else like as a content writer, or maybe somebody else writes your about page. And yet sometimes you have to be careful because they can also remove the voice that you want it to have, right? The perspective that you want it to have. And so I would recommend journaling out, like, what do I think about sharing this story? Like, what are my thoughts about that? Like, how does it make me feel? And I would make sure that when your about section on your website goes up, that elements of how it makes you feel sharing that are included.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's see, who else? Destiny, you have your hand raised. Is it in regard to our conversation, or is there a question? We'll keep questions for the end, so I'm not sure if that's what that's for. Where's Destiny? I have no idea where Destiny is on my screen. No. Okay. Anybody else have something that they're not sure, that maybe they're
I do.
keeping to their chest? Okay. Bree.
Are you guys able to hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I've kind of struggled with the fact that I was like a single mom for a long time. Well, for at least the first like 3 to 4 years of my daughter's life. And I had to utilize student loans to kind of help me through that process as like my plan B. And so I kind of get a little ashamed about that because I had to use that. But it's just like, you know, when you're 18 or 19, you're in college and you're trying to stay going to school full time, you're working full time, but you don't make much. It's like I had to utilize whatever tools around me so that we wouldn't struggle. Like we didn't qualify for any assistance or anything. So like any of my refunds, I would take the full amount of the loan. And like for my refunds, I would just simply throw them into savings. And any reimbursements from my job for like education purposes, I'll throw those into savings. So like when I graduated, I was able to pay off $20,000 of those student loans, which was more than half. But it still kind of feels like, you know, I'm a coach, but I have to tell you how I need to really utilize debt. And just like even now, like me and my husband, we're still working through our debt, getting rid of our debt, because when we got married, he was way worse with money. So it's like I didn't have any stressful debt. I only had like student loans and my car loan. And I was working through getting those paid off. But then my husband had collections, so I had to do that. And then like my daughter, I have her in private school because our school zones are horrible. So it's like I had to slow down my paying off our debt because of a priority of more so having my child in private school and getting a greater education was more important to me than getting out of debt sooner.
What is your opinion of what people might say about that? Like what scares you the most about what people's reaction would be to everything you just said?
I guess that it's like, oh, okay, well, she's had to utilize that. She's still in debt. So how can I go to her as a coach for me? Like, you know, she hasn't arrived per se because I'm still going through my own journey as well. And it's like I have the knowledge and I follow it. And, you know, I'm in a great financial space, in my opinion, even while I'm getting through the debt. But it's just like that other people may not, you know, see that. Like they'll instead be like, oh, well, how can you tell me anything about mine if you're not doing your own?
I think a couple of things is, I think it's really normal. This is a very valid concern for a lot of coaches in general, is that, and I think that this message gets spread by people who aren't financial coaches as well, you know, that you have to be perfect with money in order to tell other people how to manage your money, which I find completely inaccurate. I think if you've been perfect with your money, you don't know what it feels like to be under financial stress. You don't know what it's like to have to face a mistake that you made and all the consequences that came with that, and then have to say like, I got to fix this, I got to clean it up, right? So I would focus on all the emotional components of your journey and not necessarily like exactly where you're at. And I don't think you should shy away from it. That's not why I'm saying that. I don't think there's anything wrong with you being in debt and still wanting to help people who maybe haven't even figured out how to get out of debt yet. So you are further along in your financial journey than other people. And those are the people that you can confidently serve, I think. So the idea is like, now it just takes time, right? Like now we just need the money to come in, but we are working the plan. And at some point you had to figure out even how to create a plan to begin with. And there are some people who haven't even done that step yet. They haven't faced it yet. They're scared to look at it and that kind of thing. And so I think I would focus on, I think that part of it. The other thing is focusing on, you know, you at least feel now, you may not be officially out of debt, but you feel like you are in control of it. You feel as if you are conquering it, right? Like you are in the process of conquering it. So, and again, that is what some people would love to say. Somebody who's in debt and hasn't figured out any pieces of like getting out of debt yet, what they actually want is to feel exactly how you're feeling right now, right? Like, yes, eventually they want to get out of debt, but you know what? They would just love to feel as if they've got a handle on it. You know, like that is just the baby step that some people need to take, and you're right there. So I would focus on exactly how you're feeling and what the behaviors that you have are, knowing that that will eventually get you out of debt. Nothing's going to change. So this is the one thing I want to tell you, and this is for everybody. Once you get out of debt, you're just on the next step of your financial journey, right? And finances are a lifelong journey. You are never done. So if you as a financial coach are waiting for some specific milestone of your financial journey to say, now I can be a good financial coach because now I've hit this spot, you will never, ever reach it. What happens is we use that as sort of like a scapegoat, I think, and I'm not saying you're doing that specifically, Brie, I just think it happens often for, people, is they say, once I get to this point, then I'll do it. Well, then that point comes and it's like, well, now there's just something else that maybe is holding us back or scares us or tells us that we're an imposter. So what you're experiencing is 100% imposter syndrome. And it's their only way to fight imposter syndrome is just to take action. So you've got to start helping people. You have to see that you can get them results. And you know what? Some people may make comments like that, Brie. I wish I could tell you that it's not going to happen. It might happen, right? And you just have to be really proud of where you're at. I'm assuming, Brie, that you are proud of the financial progress you've made. True?
I am, and I've never actually felt worried because the entire time I had a plan. It's not like, oh, let me take off these student loans and use them, crazily. Like the entire time I was like, I did everything with purpose and in management. So I felt completely safe in a sense throughout the entire period.
Yeah. So I will also say this is a great example, and I don't want to shame any expert because I believe that we all need to say exactly what we think, but I want to just make a point here. And in order to do that, I have to say names. But so let's say there's somebody, a very popular financial expert that says you should go to college and never take out student loans and you should never take out a student loan debt, right? Now, that may be possible for a lot of people. And yet, Brie, probably who you connect with, there's a whole part of our society that truly will not have that option in their lifetime, right? Like it is not something, the history of their family, where they come from, the socioeconomic nature of our world, that is just simply not possible for everybody, if you ask me. So, and again, you guys can disagree with me on that if you want, that's okay. But I want you to think about your ideal client, Brie, as somebody who's like, wow, no one in my family has gone to college. No one knows anything about how to apply for scholarships. So I have like no help. So, but I want to go to college and I'm going to do it by taking out student loans. And a financial coach is out there preaching that you should not have to take out student loans to go to college. How do you think that person feels? Do you think they're feeling very judged by that other expert?
I definitely think that they do. I really do believe they feel judged. And it's like, when I listen to them, I'm like, you don't even know, like it's very necessary for some people to take out those student loans.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't, still be successful or be a conqueror of their finances.
So I would say, using that message in your marketing and everything is exactly who you are. So you're not saying just do it with little regard. You're saying there is a right way to do it. And I'm not going to judge you if our best option is that you get education by using student loans, but let's make sure we're doing it in the smartest way possible. And that's your tribe. Does that make sense?
Yes, it really does. It lets me know, hey, let's just do it with purpose or management. So I know how to address that with my clients. So I definitely believe that there's space for me elsewhere.
Good. Yes, good. I see there's a lot of chat questions. I can't take the time to read them. Do you guys, anybody else want to share? I see maybe, yes, Yante.
Hi, Kelsa.
Hi.
There are two things that I struggled with that I want to share because I'm sure other people, other coaches struggle with it as well.
Great.
So one was, a lot of coaches have a story about they got into financial trouble and then they had to work themselves out and now they want to help other people do that. And that wasn't my case. Like I've always been pretty good with money. And so sometimes I struggle with, well, how do I frame that? Because I didn't have like this horrible thing happen financially and I've just kind of always been that way. And so like sometimes I felt insecurities about, not that I wanted to have a financial trouble, but like, will I be able to relate, or will people think I'm credible because I wasn't like in this really bad situation before, and just how to frame that. And so that was one thing I just wanted to mention, that And actually, I think in the chat, other people have mentioned that too.
Oh, good.
The struggles that, that is, how do I relate to people, or how do I convince them that I understand despite having not necessarily been in this financial trouble?
Such a great question. I think what I would do is I would look to another area of your life that maybe you did have a challenge that you had to overcome and use that as a correlation. So maybe it's like weight loss or getting in shape, or it can be a faith journey, right? Where you had to really evaluate what you thought and how you were going to live your life around that. And that these, personal finance has some unique attributes to it and how people treat it. And yet there are other parts of it that are just like any other part of our life, right? So maybe it's a dating thing or communication with a spouse, or I would find a lot of those things and draw the connections from there and talk. So kind of what you want to do is you want to look at the process you followed and in a challenge. So let's take weight loss. Okay. So, and think back to, and you want to try and break it down into steps. So think back to like, how did I first decide that this was a real problem that I needed to face? Like what happened? What thoughts went through my mind? How did that feel? What did I first tell myself? Like what were all the excuses that I used first to tell myself it wasn't a problem? And then once I decided it was a problem, what did I do first? Did I step on the scale? Did I go research a bunch of stuff online? Did I tell a friend? Like, what exactly did I do? You want to think about that and then imagine that a person who's experienced, your ideal person who's experiencing a financial challenge is likely experiencing the exact same thing just with money and not the scale in this example. Does that make sense?
Yes, what you're saying is exactly what I've had to do and had to think about and kind of help me to work through it and come to terms with it. Just because it hasn't been money, there have been other things that, like you're saying, I felt certain ways about or shame about or whatever. And the other thing was that I had to deal with, I guess, because of that, and was really figuring out, because it was more of a natural thing for me, I just kind of did certain things with my money, didn't think much about it. I had to really think about what, in helping somebody else, how do I help somebody else? Like, how do I put that framework to help somebody else get this similar result? I just kind of do it, right? And like, so what do I need to put the structure in place for somebody else to be able to do the same thing? And to also really kind of come to figure out what my philosophies were. So you were talking about philosophies earlier. Like I had to take some time to really think and honestly, on some things still think about it. What are really my philosophies? What do I really believe? Because like, yeah, I might make a decision for myself and not think much about it, but like being able to convey that to a client and know where I stand on a certain thing, I had to really think about those things. Like, what are my financial philosophies and make some decisions about it. So yeah, those may be some things that other people are dealing with as well. And I wanted to share that you're not alone.
I love that. Thank you. And I think you can also use like examples of clients or examples of family members that you witnessed or observed. And that's mine. Like my why story does not say anything about my own financial struggles. It's all about what I lived, right, with my mom and that kind of thing. And so, and I did have, I partnered with a tech company. This was years ago. It did not work out. So we're not partners anymore. And one of the things that they wanted me to do was change my why story, because they said you really need to experience a hardship in your why story for people to relate to you. They wanted me to change it, and I said I can't change my why story. My why story is my why story. Like it is, I mean, it's real, right? Like I can't change it just because it doesn't sound good enough for somebody, And for me, I mean, I tell you that, Shantae, and everybody, because we run a pretty successful business, and it doesn't encompass the fact that I had financial struggles, and it's not to say we've been perfect, because we haven't. And I don't shy away from the good decisions we've made, and I don't shy away from sharing the mistakes we had either. So, Michael and I are not infallible when it comes to money. Like we've definitely done some stupid things. We just recorded a podcast episode like 2 months ago. That's like the 5 money mistakes I made in my life, the top 5 money mistakes that we made in our life. So if you ever want to go take a listen to that, you can. But it's not like the reason. Does that make sense? And so it doesn't have to be. I think the point, it's 10:30. I do want to wrap up a little bit. I'll save the chat so I can go through and kind of read some of those. But the point is to, be real and be authentic in sharing your story, but also in how sharing your story feels to share the story, right? That, and I wouldn't hesitate to say, like, call out the elephant of the room you know, that's like, I know I don't have a financial struggle to share with you, but that doesn't mean that I don't understand financial struggles, right? Like I would say that, because it's almost like you want to handle the objection that someone might give you before the objection even happens. You know what I mean? I do want to say that some of the questions, so when we scheduled this chat, a lot of you posted questions. A number of those questions, you guys, we have answered in the unit section of the Facebook group. So if you have not checked those out, on the left-hand side of your screen, you can click on units. There's videos in there, posts, that kind of thing. A number of the questions have already been answered. So I just want to make sure you know that, so that if you really are struggling with trying to figure something out, you use that as a resource. Just a reminder, because there were some things that we didn't talk about really owning who you are. Your title. So, you know, do you choose financial coach, financial counselor, financial consultant, any of those type, budgeting coach, money coach? Just think about, you know, which one feels most in alignment with who you are. Your brand. So the colors you choose, the images on your website, I think more than anything. So like I get an immediate thought when I go to someone's website before I even read a word on the website, right? Like the colors they choose, the way it's laid out, the images. Is it a lot of black and white images? Is it bright colors? Is it somebody outdoors? Is it a man or a woman? Like all of the imagery on your website should talk to your ideal client. Okay, so make sure that you are looking at the images, the colors you choose, your business name. So does your business name represent like really who you are as a coach? The words you choose, go back and look at those and really ask yourself if it sounds like you. Is that how you would talk? You know, I always like to just kind of record myself talking and then write it out, and then of course clean it up a little bit, because I can talk all day long, and chances are you don't want it to be written that way. But the idea is that, you know, don't try to edit it so much that it doesn't even sound like you anymore. Okay. And then your philosophy. So there, you know, something like there's not just one way to pay off debt. Credit cards aren't evil. I was talking with Christine Lucan, who's in the group. I don't think she's on the call. No. Oh yeah, she said she couldn't join. And her and I were talking. She's got I think a LinkedIn post or something like that. I don't remember the title of it, but something about like what the points that she disagrees with Dave Ramsey on. Okay. And it is like leads to more clients than almost anything for her. I did a post on my blog. It's probably 8 years old now or something. And it's like what I like and dislike about Dave Ramsey. And it's one of those things where for a number of people, it may turn them off, and that's okay. And for a lot of people, they'll reach out to me and they'll say, I'm so glad I read this. This is one of the reasons I'm contacting you, right? And because it makes me who I am, and I'm just owning the fact that I don't subscribe to everything that is put out there. And I'm just using that as an example. You can pick Susie Orman, you can pick Tony Robbins, right? You can pick anybody, and because there's a whole group of people that are not a massive follower of that person, that don't feel like they're connected, and they sort of feel badly about that because they're like, wow, like millions of people love and worship the ground this person walks on, and I don't. Is something wrong with me? And then they're going to read your post and say, oh, thank God somebody gets it, you know? And it's not to shame those other people. It's really as a way of sort of solidifying your own viewpoints and what you think. And so I just want to encourage you guys to lean in to who you are and be okay with that. So I hope that helps. This is recorded, so if you want to go back and take a look at it later, you can. Like I said, I want to encourage you guys to take a look at the units section of the group. We've done a ton of training. There's a lot of resources in there. And I'm sorry that we were not able to get to everyone's questions, but hopefully you guys found this valuable and had some key takeaways. Please post in the group kind of, if you do make some changes, or it can be one thing, it can be a whole bunch of things, but please share what you do as a result of this conversation. Passive learning is great. We have to do that, but active learning, taking action on what you learn is really important. So hopefully you don't just sit back after this and not do anything with it. Really want to encourage you guys to take action as best as possible. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys have a wonderful Friday, wonderful weekend, and I'll see you guys later. Bye, everybody.